Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Kira Middleton and in this video I'm going to be showing you some different options for accommodation when bikepacking. I'm going to be covering camping, warm showers, hostels, hotels, Airbnbs, and then finally finishing off with Bothies. Firstly, camping. This is probably my favourite and default option when bikepacking, partly down to the cost, but also so I get to sleep out and enjoy all the elements. And I guess there's two main options when camping, either in campsites or wild camping. Using campsites can be great because of all the facilities, such as washing, water, showers, and being able to charge up all your devices. Campsites can also be more sociable than wild camping, because you can meet other travellers and share stories with them. The main drawback for campsites is obviously the cost, and this can depend dramatically depending on the country and the location and type of campsite. They do sometimes give you a small discount if you come by bike or just have a small tent and only need a small space. When I was cycling down through Europe, most of the campsites cost around €10, but there were a few which cost sort of 20 to 30 euros, which at that price point is the same price as staying in a cheap hostel or hotel. Campsites can also be noisy and it depends on the time of year, with some campsites only open in the summer season and closed all the rest of the year. Wild camping can be simple to plan, as you don't need to book anything and you can change your plan depending on the weather and how you're feeling that day and how far you want to cycle. It can be a great option if you really want to experience elements and sleep out under the stars. On my trips I've slept in forests, up mountains, on moorlands and even in ditches on the side of busy roads. And it's also free, so it brings the price of the bikepacking trip down, allowing you to go for more days or go on a bikepacking trip if you're on a budget. In terms of drawbacks, safety is obviously a big concern for people when thinking about wild camping, and it really depends on the country you're in and the area you wild camp. The first time I wild camped was halfway up a mountain crossing over into Italy, and I woke up halfway through the night with this wild boar trotting around my tent, which was a little bit frightening at the time, but it turned out fine and the wild boar just trotted away and yeah, I was fine. And then other things can happen, like once I woke up and had just hundreds of slugs all over my tent, in my clothes, in my bags, which wasn't fun at all. It took quite a long time to clean everything out, but that's just the joys of wild camping. I think it's important when wild camping that you make sure you leave the place as you found it, take away any litter, and make sure that the people can't tell you've been there, and also just stay away from people's houses, and properties and gardens, so you don't really impact anyone else. In many countries it's not strictly legal, and you do need the landowner's permission, but there are some areas and countries which do allow wild camping. These include Scotland and Dartmoor in the UK, and then in Europe there's places like Sweden and Norway and Scandinavia where you are allowed to wild camp as long as you're away from people's properties and away from people's houses. When wild camping, it is important to plan ahead and just make sure you've got all the essentials with you, whether that's water, enough food, enough battery for all your devices. There's nothing worse than cycling up half a mountain to wild camp and realise that you don't have enough water to drink or make you passive for that night. So yeah, just make sure you take enough with you. But wild camping can be a really great option, allowing you some stunning views and scenery and having a peaceful night under the stars out in the middle of nowhere. So the second option of accommodation for bikepacking is using a website called Warmshowers. It's a bit like couchsurfing, but only for cycle touring and bikepackers. When I first heard about Warmshowers, I couldn't quite believe it just because it sounded such an amazing idea to have. It's a not-for-profit website and has almost 200,000 users, and it allows people to sign up as either a host or a guest. Free to use, and it has a map where you can see the different hosts in that area, and along with their profile and what sort of facilities they're offering. Sometimes they might be offering you to be able to camp in their garden, or sleep on their sofa, or they might even have a spare bed where you can sleep. I guess it works on the basis that if you've enjoyed using Warmshowers and stayed with a few hosts, that maybe one day if you're able to, you might become a host yourself and be able to offer your garden or your spare bedroom or your sofa or anything to bikpackers. I've used it on most of my trips, especially in Europe, and I've always been blown away by the generosity of the hosts. And because most of the hosts are cyclists as well, and have done bikepacking before, they understand what's needed after a long day in the saddle, such as like food, water, washing, and of course a good night's sleep. It can be great in the evenings, being able to share bikepacking stories and tales of the road, as well as learning about the local area and the local people and the local cultures. When I've been bikepacking by myself, it's definitely a good way of meeting people and something to look forward to after a long day on the saddle by yourself. And Warmshowers is an international website with users and hosts in all different countries around the world. Especially in cities, there's almost too many hosts because it takes a while to look through all the profiles and find someone suitable. And it's only in like rural places or sometimes in off-season when people aren't expecting cyclists or people to stay so much. When I'm bikepacking, I often use Warmshowers every sort of 3 to 5 days, although it depends on the location and the weather. If it's been really wet, then it's always quite nice to stay somewhere dry and stay with the Warmshowers host. Staying in hostels or cheap hotels isn't something that I do that often on my bikepacking trips, especially if I'm travelling solo. I guess this is partly down to the cost of them, but also they're less flexible than, say, camping, because you have to book ahead of time, and which means that if you sort of change your route or the weather's bad, or you just don't want to travel so far that day, then you have to cancel it or end up paying for it anyway. But saying that, it is easier to book last minute now. I found on booking.com you can often have sort of last minute deals, which you can book just in the evening and then just turn up there. But obviously there's the cost of that, and sometimes places aren't that bike friendly and don't have anywhere to store your bike, especially if it's muddy or they just don't want to have it there. When I went bikepacking up through Spain in, I think it was February 2018, I didn't really have the right sleeping bag, and the night started getting a bit too cold, so I did start using cheap hotels costing sort of 15 to 20 euros per night. I was able to book these on the day, and in those circumstances that was probably the right thing to do just because it's getting too cold in my tent. Hostels are generally cheaper than hotels, but then you might be sharing with other people in the same dorm, so obviously if you're a light sleeper then you might not have such a great night's sleep. But yeah, staying in hostels or cheap hotels can be a good option if you want some more comfort and showers and washing. But also if you're doing day trips, it can be a good place to leave all your things and then return in the evening. Finally, I'm going to be talking about Bothies, which are old and disused buildings in remote locations. In the UK, the Mountain Bothies Association is the charity that maintains and looks after the bothies with the help of volunteers. They are buildings which may have once been used by farm workers or construction workers, but are now available for walkers and cyclists to stay in. They are normally very basic, and sometimes might just be full walls and roof, and other ones might have a fireplace or a platform where you can sleep on. They are free to use and there's no booking system or anything. There is a Bothies code, which basically you have to respect the bothy and other people staying there, and leave the bothy as you found it and take all your litter and any rubbish home. There's a map showing all the locations of the UK bothies on the Mountain Bothies Association website, which tells you about that bothy, how you can access it, and some photos of it. And it's important to add that bothies are open to anyone, so you might be sharing the bothy with other people, or you might have the whole place to yourself. Personally, I've mainly used the ones in Wales, and some of them are just in really stunning locations. My favourite one is overlooking the Elan Valley Reservoir, and it was just really nice and peaceful there, amazing views around the valley and the sort of mountains around there. Being in these peaceful and really remote locations does make them a little bit harder to reach, especially on bike. Often they're quite far away from the roads, or some of them have tracks to them, some of them don't. The one I stayed, which overlooked the Elan Valley Reservoir, had about a kilometre of bog and sort of moorland to hike over, where I had to put my bike on my shoulder and just have sort of muddy feet, but that just made the stay even nicer and even more worth it. So yeah, they can be a really good place to stay, especially if it's wet or raining, you want some shelter over your head and enjoy some stunning scenery. But obviously it does depend on what bike you're using and if there's any bothies around you on your bikepacking trip. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found it useful and enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what's your favourite accommodation for bikepacking and any tips you have.